So, how gay will this series get? Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to episode 3 of The Summer Hikaru Died. And so yeah, last episode ramped up the gay like insanely. Episode 1, like I had said before, was like very subtle about it. It was trying to like be a little more, symbolic and everything. I referred to it as like kind of like queer baiting to a degree because I felt like it didn't feel like it was going to like make anything super blatant and was gonna just kind of like play along with the idea but not confirm anything. And then episode 2 happens. I was like, oh no, it's just super fucking gay actually. Like with him sticking his hand inside of Hikaru's chest and everything, and Hikaru kind of like climaxing from it, for lack of a better way to put it. It's just like, what? Oh, awkward as fuck for a number of reasons. But I talked last time about like what this series clearly is coming to represent through that second episode. And the best way to describe it is that this is a series about a teenage boy discovering and coming to terms with being gay. And it is told through the lens of horror, which is a very unique way of doing that. It's not that it's not been done before, but it's not a super common way of doing it. The author chose to make this story about like coming to terms with being different through your sexuality and showcasing it through like this small town horror that deals very deeply with metaphor, with ideology, because we see how like the other characters like talk about things and how you can very much see the idea of what they're actually saying there. Like the one woman from last time. How what she was saying like very much kind of came across as very homophobic. Even though she wasn't talking about, queerness. But it's like the subtext, the context of everything around you, kind of telling us what is actually being said. And you have like this entire town like full of like these old-fashioned bigots who are seeing things in a very like, well, old-fashioned black and white way. And you have just the fact that they're having to hide all of this, very much feeling like an allegory for the closet. It's just episode 2 was like unquestionably gayer than the first. It's like it's not even close. But it was also better because of the way it was written, the way it was handled. It's like, again, you understand exactly what's being said and what's being shown. It's not subtle about it anymore. I mean, the scene, again, going back to it, because it was honestly one of the most like impactful scenes of the episode. But the scene where Yoshiki's sticking his hand in Hikaru's body like that, it's sex. It's experimenting with gay sex as a teenager. It is 100% like there is nothing else that can be seen as. It is the idea of a teenager discovering these feelings and experimenting on it. Something that does very actively happen. You understand it instantly without it having to say anything about that because the imagery is so very specific and understandable. It's just so well done. It's so well conceptualized. And it's so well visualized because of how well conceptualized it is. Anyone who is queer will instantly like read so much into this, more so than I think a straight person might. And a straight person could probably still see it too, especially an ally who has a lot of queer friends and whatnot. But a queer person watching this is gonna, I feel, get a lot more out of it because they're gonna see a lot more of their own journeys here. They're gonna see a lot more of their own struggles, their own pains. The people of this village are going to remind them of all the bigots they've had to face in their lives. Um, the questioning nature of it is going to remind them of their own questions as they were discovering this for themselves, no matter what age they ended up coming out at. Um, and going to my own experiences as a queer person, as someone who is, not just pansexual, but also trans and non-binary. It's it's one of those situations where I do see a lot in there. Cuz like I grew up being told a lot of homophobic things and kind of taking them to heart, kind of believing in them. And I had to work my way out of that. I had to be able to change who I was. With help, of course. I definitely had help, and there's nothing wrong with having help. But I was able to become a better person, and it allowed me to even learn so much about myself that I was able to come out. Because I was definitely unknowingly holding that in for so long. I've talked about it before, but there were so many signs that I knew I was, trans and non-binary when I was young. But I didn't I couldn't acknowledge it. I couldn't comprehend the idea of it. So even though the signs were there and I kind of knew, I was never able to come out as early as I would have liked. Because I should have been able to come out when I was like a kid, but I wasn't able to because of the influences around me, because of my own self-hatred for that kind of stuff. But I eventually did get there. It sucks that it didn't happen until I became an adult, but I did eventually get there and I was able to come out and I've been so much happier since. And so it's like a lot of the allegories, a lot of the themes, a lot of the ideas in this have very much been relatable to me. And I'm very curious to see where this goes. Um, I even mentioned last time that the village calling in this I don't know what you would call him, an exorcist. The guy with the hamster. Um is very much like a group of people like your parents or whatnot, even just calling in like a pastor to speak with you and try to stop you from being gay, which is like Jesus. And that is one of the more subtle uh allegories in this. That's one of the more subtle ones, and that's still blatantly obvious. Um, and on top of all of the, messaging and theming, it's also just, got great imagery, got great horror imagery, a lot of tension, a lot of fun, spooky stuff. I really dig that this is the combination the author decided to go with. We have insane body horror and this supernatural horror aspect to it. Um, but we also have, the gay. And it's just I'm just excited, man. It's this is episode 2 really won me over. And I'm very, very excited to see how this continues to be even more gay. Um, I am very much hoping, and I don't know if it's going to like go, if it's going to end up becoming more explicit or if it's going to stay in more of the allegory metaphor zone. But I think my biggest wish is that it does become explicit at the very end. And like at the very end, Yoshiki and Hikaru actually do have a kiss. Because it's like, I feel like that would be like the perfect ultimate final moment for this series. Because it would bring the allegory into the reality of it all, make it entirely literal. But it would also feel like a good send off for a series that, again, is very clearly meant to be a gay allegory. So that's just what I want. But either way, we're going to get into this episode, see what we have in store, and hope for the best. So let's check it out. Hold up just a sec. Before you click that link down in the description below to get to today's video, I want to remind you of all the awesome content we have both on this channel and the Princess of Gaming channel. Let's check it out. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, we know that this series is like a big allegory for queerness, for coming out as gay and coming to terms with that and everything. But, and I don't know if this is intentional. I don't know if this is meant to be like vague enough to be read this way. I don't know like what the entire intent is here. It might be one of those things that's left vague enough for the intent that it could be read in a couple different ways. There are like some creators who will do that. But you can almost also, outside of the gay aspect, read Hikaru as almost possibly being trans, with the aspect of like, you know, the notable change, the fact that you have this parasitic alien monster creature within Hikaru, within a body that is kind of foreign to them, and feeling like it doesn't quite fit them, it doesn't quite work for them, it doesn't quite make sense. And wanting to kind of like find the kind of like, it's hard to describe when it's used in such allegory like this, but it just kind of gives off those vibes. And I don't know if that was intentional or if that's just me reading into it as a trans person myself, but there's still the obvious like gay allegories with all this, with like, you know, Hikaru representing like, oh, this person has just changed so much because like they've come out and they've almost seemed like they've become a different person. And Yoshiki is like kind of like having to figure that out himself and coming to terms with things himself. And so we see like with the end here, he's like moving from like one stage of grief into the other, because that's like definitely like what's happening here. Going from like denial to acceptance, though I think there's supposed to be more between those. I don't know. I have a hard time remembering the exact order and like everything of the stages of grief. But But either way, it shows like a clear change in perspective by the end. This episode deals a lot with kind of the aftermath of what happened last time. And I mentioned that the entire hand in the chest and everything last time was, from what I could tell from my perspective, supposed to be an allegory for, you know, experimentation. Um, Two kids who are like, you know, coming to terms with the idea that they're gay, experimenting with that idea. Um, and this episode kind of feels like the fallout to that, with them, or, well, mostly Yoshiki, being extremely awkward about it at first and then going into like this heavy denial because it's like it scared him. It was such a like shocking, frightening moment for him that he's like trying to move on from it. He's trying to deny it, and it even causes him to eventually reach out to this woman because he's scared. He feels like this is not normal because of everything he's been taught and raised into. And so he talks to this woman about it and starts becoming more and more distant from Hikaru because of it. It eventually leads to that confrontation in the classroom, and when Hikaru, you know, loses his shape and transforms and almost attacks and kills Yoshiki, like, we know what that was supposed to represent, right? Because we know that the hand in the chest thing was obviously meant to represent sexual experimentation. Hikaru almost assaulted Yoshiki. It wasn't, I mean, literally within the case of the series, it was shown to be like a near murder. But in terms of the allegory, in terms of like the gay allegory of this series, out of desperation, because of Yoshiki, you know, kind of like pushing him away, and because of how like obsessive his love for Yoshiki has become, and how he's you know, discovering these feelings himself, he almost raped Yoshiki. That was the allegory for sure. But he didn't do it. He didn't actually commit to it, and he stopped himself, and he was not only extremely repentant but horrified by what he had done. He had acted entirely on instinct, out of, you know, just everything that they had been talking about, all the like pain and fear and just emotional turmoil from their fight. And it's very clear to me that he acted without thinking. It almost felt like it was supposed to be like him almost trying to convince Yoshiki, but he realized it was wrong. And he was not only apologetic, but he was so scared of how Yoshiki would respond, he didn't even go to school after that. He stopped going. And he retreated into, like, you know, the blanket and was so afraid of how Yoshiki would respond to him. Because he genuinely acted on pure emotion and did not mean to and never would want to do something like that. It was an action that he took, though, and that it obviously like horrified Yoshiki to the point of like him really being fucked up over the situation, which rightly so. But he came to realize that Hikaru, as we're still going to just call him for sake of ease, didn't mean to do that and didn't intend to like hurt him. It was like this instinctual action that should never have happened, but he chooses not to blame Hikaru because he sees that Hikaru is still so scared and figuring things out too. And that's why at the end he dedicates himself to helping Hikaru instead, to helping him figure things out and learn things. Because whether you do want to view Hikaru as like a trans allegory or just the gay allegory, it's like there's a lot that he specifically is like just not in the knowledge of. That's very clear that he's just not knowing about. And that can work either way. The lack of knowledge and the desire to learn more about it can absolutely be seen as a trans or a gay thing. And being afraid of losing the one person you have who's been through this with you so far can lead you to doing regrettable, horrible things out of fear, especially as a hormonal teenager. Like, teenagers do stupid shit. Believe me, I can speak from experience. When I was a teenager, I did stupid fucking shit that I regret greatly. Like, I never went like as far to assault someone in that regard, but I absolutely have done like bad things that I really feel bad about. And it's one of those things that you just have to like work towards forgiving yourself for. And it's difficult. It's really difficult. Because like you want to, as a kid, know everything. You want to believe that you can know everything. But you can't. Because you're a kid and your brain isn't developed enough for that. There's going to be a lot of things that you do that are just not going to work. And sometimes you're going to get scared of that. And it's just going to make you be even more stupid. It's almost this like this upsetting loop of teenage stupidity. And like I had mentioned, there was a lot of evidence and a lot of like looking back on that I can tell. I knew I was queer like from childhood, and I was just pushing it back so much because of what I was taught and told that it was wrong and that I was wrong for thinking that kind of stuff. And so I basically convinced myself that I couldn't be like that. And I'm about to get very personal here, so stick with me. I did experiment with things when I was young. When I was a teenager and I was like really starting to like realize this, and this was like before I really started pushing it away. I had a friend who I did experiment with. And keep in mind, this is when I was like identifying as a boy. Because this is like well before I ever even realized I was trans. And even though I had the inklings, even though I had the feelings and everything, like I never really again followed that up because I was in a lot of denial about it. But I identified back then as a boy because that's what I was just told I was. But the point is, um, I experimented with a friend at the time because I had feelings of, could I be gay or just queer in general? But at the time, again, I thought I was a guy and my friend was a guy, so we experimented. And I'm not going to obviously like say his name or anything, but we uh we did it more than once. And it never went into like full blown sex or anything like that. It was just us exploring each other's bodies, we'll say. Um and it was something that like really awoke a lot in me, and also scared me to the point where that's when I really began pushing back on it. It was like after the few times we did this, I and I stayed friends with him. And cause the thing is, he started pushing back against it too. And by the way, I have no idea where he is nowadays. I did not keep in contact with him after I moved out of that house. But um, I like Yoshiki here started pushing it away greatly. I was very very afraid because again of everything I had been told by the people around me, that that was wrong, that it was dangerous, that that it went against God, stuff like that. And so I, believing that, gained a lot of self-hatred and began to push that away to a point where I became addicted to pornography. And I did so intentionally. Because I had discovered porn by that point. I was old enough to know what porn was. But I intentionally got myself addicted to it at that point because I wanted, specifically, obviously, to straight porn. Because I wanted to push away the feelings that I was having. I wanted to, like, push away all the fears about myself and about what people would think of me. And so I purposely got myself addicted to that. And I have a much healthier view of sex work nowadays, I'll let you know. I am not like addicted to it anymore, and I very much view these people as people more now. And I support sex work. Like I think that they should be supported just like anyone doing any job. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, I did this specifically to avoid these feelings I was having. And I pushed this away for so long. And again, I didn't come out as queer until I was an adult. Because I was afraid. Because I had experimented with this and it made me afraid of what, again, people would say if they found out. It made me afraid of what people would do. Like, I didn't know if I would be allowed to be welcomed into my family anymore. And the thing is, I didn't even know it at the time, but that was actually a very valid fear because a lot of parents kick out their kids for being queer. So it's like this series continues to like connect to me and to a lot of this just experience in a very meaningful, heavy way. And like I kind of said, I feel like this is almost vague enough to be interpreted in a couple different ways. Not just what Hikaru had done to Yoshiki there, but just a lot of these episodes. I feel like they're done vague enough so that different people going through a queer experience in different ways can get different things from it. but all of them being valid. And if that is intentional from the writer, that's brilliant, because that's kind of, in my opinion, the best way to handle queer allegory like this, to make it so that it can connect to different people going through slightly different things, but all with the same themes and ideals. All like oh, a gay person and a trans person can both understand this and get slightly different things from it, but it still speaks to both of them on that kind of level. Um, and like, I'm sure there's plenty of queer women who can get a lot from this, even though this is specifically focusing around two guys. There's just a lot that you can definitely take from a show like this, and a lot that like really just, I guess the best way to put it is, understands what the mind does when you're afraid of coming out. How your own mind can turn against you because of fear and pain. And it's just something that's really hard to deal with, even after having come out so long ago at this point. It's something I still struggle with. I still struggle with this fear and pain. I still struggle with people not accepting me. And that's probably always going to be the case. I don't know if you can hear that. There's like a work truck out there like going by. Um, but I probably always will struggle with that to a degree. Because that's just life. That's part of the experience. As much as it sucks, it is. And it shouldn't be. It would be great if we as a society could get past that kind of thing. But I don't think we're going to do so anytime soon, unfortunately. It's just one of those things that's like really difficult to get past, because you would have to like get everyone to understand and accept it in a way that would like be kind of unreasonable with free will existing. It should be reasonable, it should happen, but again, it's just more than likely not going to. But yeah, it's like this series is becoming increasingly personal for me, and there's a lot that I'm seeing in it that's like just really speaking to specific like things that I've personally gone through in my life. And I'm 33 right now, by the way. Um I'm 33 years old, and it's like this was like what, 2 decades ago, this event I'm talking about with my friend. And honestly, like there's evidence like that I kind of knew I was queer like since I was like 5 to 10 years old. But again, the fear and everything, and it just kind of like kept me from being able to fully acknowledge and accept myself for my gender, my interests in people, etc., etc. And I'm like I said, I'm at that point now where it's like, yeah, I know I'm trans and non-binary. I know I'm pansexual. Yada, yada, yada. And I'm comfortable with this. And I'm at a good place in my life because I've come out, a better place than I was before. And I'm very comfortable with knowing who I am. So, I would say that this show quite thoroughly has me hooked. um, because any kind of show that like gets this kind of personal for me is going to be one that like really like hooks me in and just doesn't let go. It's going to be it's definitely the kind of show that I just feel like is going to be something special by the time it's over because of how much it personally means to me. Just the stuff it's talking about without actually talking about. It's intense. And the last thing I'm going to touch on here is going back to the entire like interpretation of the Hikaru attack scene as being sexual assault. A lot of that also comes from the fact that I have been sexually assaulted. And it very much gave those vibes to me, especially within the context of everything else that's been happening and being said and everything. It very much like hit me in that moment because again I've been through that. And it's something that that really bothers me, I'll say. If you watched my reaction this past weekend to the girl with the dragon tattoo, yeah, you can definitely see how much that can bother me. You will definitely see like my thoughts on that. But yeah, in seriousness, it's like it's such a heavy, important, and intense topic that a lot of people have difficulty talking about for good reason. It's something that I like really like have a connection to, but also like really like stand against. Like sexual assault to any degree is like one of, if not the worst thing a person can do. It is one of the only unforgivable crimes in my eyes. And it's something that like personally bothers me, but also bothers me because I've known like friends and stuff who have been assaulted. And it's something that I really am very strongly against. But like Yoshiki here, I don't. Well, okay, with Yoshiki, I don't think he should hold a grudge because I don't think Hikaru like entirely meant to do that. Meant is a strong word to avoid there, but you know what I mean. It's like it was pure instinctual action out of fear and pain and misery, and he was entirely repentant. He knew that not only what he had done was wrong, but really fucked up to the point where it really fucked him up. He was entirely regretful. He was entirely like broken up about it, and he wanted to make it right, and he separated himself from Yoshiki after, keep in mind. Because he knew that what he did was so fucked up. That he chose to stay away from school, to stay away from Yoshiki, and like he was so afraid that Yoshiki wouldn't even be able to forgive him in the end, but he did. Because he understood how much pain Hikaru was in, and how much like he himself wanted to be around Hikaru. It's just one of those things that's a very nuanced topic that is very hard to look at in black and white, and it's hard to talk about because on instinct I want to fucking hate him. On instinct I want to like despise Hikaru for doing that, and I want to like I want to turn entirely against him and see him as a villain, but I can't because the writing is so fucking good that it makes it very clear that he didn't want to do that, that he regrets having done that, that it was like, in his eyes, the biggest mistake he's ever made. He is entirely repentant, he is entirely sorry, and it's very clear just how much fear propelled that action. It doesn't make it right, and he knows it doesn't make it right. He knows that nothing makes that right. No matter how you view the action, no matter what kind of allegory you view it as being, it's like Hikaru himself knows how badly he fucked up. And it's one of those occasions where it's like you really have to make a judgment call. Do you turn against him because it's like that's so unforgivable, or do you give him another chance because you realize that was entirely an instinctual emotional reaction and he didn't want to do it and he regrets having done it to that heavy of a degree? I'm choosing to stick with what Yoshiki thinks is best here because he was the one who was the victim of that either way. If Yoshiki feels like he's okay accepting Hikaru's apology and he feels he's okay giving him another chance and everything, then that's who I am going to side with. Because you should always side with the victim when it comes to assault of any kind. And so I'm siding with the victim and choosing to see it from his perspective and choose to go with what he is choosing to go with. Not the most wonderful of way to describe that, but, I've never been good with words. I'm good at writing, and I'm good at understanding words. I'm just not good at speaking them. But yeah, it's like if he's comfortable enough to forgive him there, I'm gonna stick with his gut. I'm gonna stick with his trust there for now, at least. But tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode? How did you see some of this stuff? Like, did you have a different interpretation of it than I did? I'm genuinely curious. Obviously, no spoilers for the future, but I'm genuinely curious to know what your interpretations of things were, if they differed from mine and whatnot. Because I feel like that could lead to some really interesting conversations. And with this series being so good because of how people interpret, how they're meant to interpret the media and everything, and how some of it is a little more vague. It's like, I just want to know if there are, what the other interpretations to all of this could be. Based on other people's personal experiences and whatnot, and just everything that you saw within the context of the episode too, and the fact that this is an allegory either way. But yeah, tell me your thoughts below. And thank you, as always, so much for tuning in. Just like I said, no spoilers for the future, because I wish to remain spoiler-free and anime only. So, that being said, thank you, as always, so much for tuning in. I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.